Welcome, I am the Loud Little Ducky. Today we are starting on a new case and timeline. This is going to be the case of Massachusetts versus Karen Reed. And this is going to be part one, and it's going to be a who's who in this case. If you need to take notes, go right ahead. And so the case is about a Boston police officer, John O'Keefe, who died on Saturday, January 29th, 2022. And was found on the lawn of another Boston police officer in Canton, Massachusetts. O'Keefe's cause of death is said to be blunt force trauma and hypothermia. The case is full of controversy, alleged conspiracies and corruption, a messy investigation, and allegations of murder by his girlfriend, Karen Reed. And when you have a case with all that and more, you have to ask, can we find the truth, or will we be left with more questions than answers? John O'Keefe deserves justice, but will he ever get it? John O'Keefe was 49 years old with a master's degree in criminal justice and eventually became a Boston police officer. Karen Reed is a 41-year-old who had a master's in finance. She met John at a birthday party in 2004 for John's sister, Kristen. Karen had gone with a mutual friend and didn't know anyone else. Karen and John talked. She thought he was cute. They exchanged phone numbers and they started dating for a short time back in 2004. During the time that Karen and John were broken up, they both went through their own hardships. Karen being diagnosed with Crohn's disease at 25 and going through 10 surgeries in a span of 2 years, even having to have a colostomy bag at one point. One surgery being reconstructive work on her intestines. Then, at age 32, she was diagnosed with MS, which is multiple sclerosis. Now, while Karen was going through all of that, John O'Keefe was dealing with raising his niece and nephew. John's sister Karen passed away after battling an aggressive brain tumor for a few months. 8 days later, John lost a best friend and a police officer, Pat Rogers, to unaliving. Pat's girlfriend was pregnant at the time, and John stepped in to be the doting godfather to the child. He was there when she was born. He is just somebody who is really amazing with kids, even though he did not have any of his own. 2 months after that, John's brother-in-law and Kristen's husband died unexpectedly from a heart attack. This was leaving his niece Kaylee and nephew Patrick without their parents. And that is when John stepped up and took the kids in. In the spring of 2020, so about 16 years after first meeting John and Karen reconnect. John sends Karen a message on Facebook. After that, the two talked and started dating. Karen grew attached to the kids and John. She would even stay at his house, often helping with the kids, especially during the pandemic because they had virtual schooling, so she'd be there during the day to help him out while John was at work. They had issues just like any regular couple has. There were good points and there were not so good points. John didn't like Karen being the fun one and spoiling the kids. He didn't want the kids to be spoiled. And he kind of had to be the non-fun parent, the disciplinary, good cop versus bad cop. And he kind of resented that a little bit, which, that kind of stinks. But she's not supposed to come in and be the disciplinary person. But Karen sometimes would feel like a glorified babysitter. And Karen could also be a little bit jealous, whether it was founded or unfounded. It is shown that she had some jealousy issues. The day of the incident, they did have a fight earlier in the day, but from witnesses and what can be seen with their own eyes, they seem like they had made up or at least put the differences aside to be a loving couple on the night in question. But did all of this cause Karen Reed to murder or accidentally kill her boyfriend, John O'Keefe? All right. Now moving to the judge and the attorney in the Who's Who's. We have Judge Beverly Cannoni. She is an Associate Justice for the Massachusetts Superior Court. She was nominated to the court by former Governor Deval Patrick on April 16th, 2014. She was in charge of the first trial. She will also be overseeing the second one, even though she has moved to, I believe, civil. She is still going to be overseeing this case. I think it would just take too much time to catch up another judge on this case and all the ins and the outs and everything that has gone on. So she is staying on this case. Now we have, that I have pictured on the bottom, is Adam Lally. He is an assistant district attorney in Norfolk County, and he was the lead prosecutor on Reed's case. Now, in the second trial, we will have Hank Brennan also involved in this case, and he is actually a criminal defense attorney that works out of Boston, and he has been brought in as a special prosecutor for this second case. Now, I don't know if he's going to be doing everything in the second case or if him and Lally are going to split duties or what is going to be happening. But they have brought in somebody to kind of take over where Adam Lally may not be the lead per se in the second case. Then we have Karen Reed's defense team, or the main people of it. Alan Jackson is a former prosecutor from Los Angeles who also has served as a United States Air Force in the United States Air Force for 4 years as a jet engine mechanic. That becomes very important when dealing with the science and understanding the physics of how everything happened, and his knowledge of how science and physics and everything works when it comes to other people. Not only is he a lawyer and knows the law, he also knows things about that specific field. So he has a little bit of edge and stuff in that particular section. Now, David Yannetti is a 34-year career as an attorney, former Middlesex County prosecutor who moved into criminal defense private practice. So those are the judges, or the judge and the attorneys in this case. The main location and the scene of the crime is 34 Fairview in Canton, Massachusetts. This is the Albert home. And we have a flagpole. I don't see the fire hydrant in this picture. We have the mailbox, which kind of becomes important. We have the main door that is really lit up in the center of the house. We have the 2-car garage, and then over to the left there is a window, and then there is a second door. Those are going to be things that are talked about in this case. that you will want to remember. Other important locations is going to be C.F. McCarthy's, which is the first bar of the night. Waterfall Bar and Grill is the second and final bar of the night. Then you have John O'Keefe's house, which is on One Meadows Avenue. You have Canton Police Department and the Sallyport. And then you have Karen's parents' home, which is in North Dighton, Massachusetts. So those places on top of 34 Fairview are essential locations in this case. Now moving on to the huge web of people that are involved in this case. So I'm going to start right smack dab in the middle on the top row. Brian Albert. Brian Albert is married to Nicole Albert. They are the owners of 34 Fairview. Brian Albert was a Boston police officer in charge of the fugitive unit until he retired in September of 2023. So about a year and a half after this incident. Nicole Albert and Brian Albert have their two kids, Brian Albert Jr. and Caitlin Albert, sorry. And that is their family. Caitlin does have a boyfriend named Tristan Morris. Then we have Brian Albert's brother, Chris Albert. And he is to the right of him in this on the top row. Now, Chris Albert is now a former county selectman. He also had a case for a hit and run, DUI, killing somebody. And what is interesting about that case is the judge in Karen Reed's case, Judge Beverly Cannoni's brother, was the one who represented Chris Albert in that particular case. Do you see that as a conflict? Now, Chris Albert is married to Julie Albert, and Julie Albert and Chris have a son named Colin Albert, who is an interesting person in this story. And then on the other side, we have Jennifer McCabe, who is Nicole Albert's sister. Jennifer McCabe is married to Matt McCabe, and they have a daughter named Allie McCabe. And so also Brian Albert Jr., the son of Nicole and Brian Albert, he was the birthday boy on kind of when this incident took place. But then there's this Katie McLaughlin. Katie McLaughlin is a firefighter paramedic in this that arrived on this scene. She knows Caitlin Albert, the daughter of the homeowner of where the incident happened. They went to high school together. They have many mutual friends. They were in school clubs together or athletics. And so they hang around in similar circles with some of the same people. So they know each other. I don't know how close they are, but they have many mutual friends. So that is another interaction that is interesting. But this is a small town where everybody kind of knows everybody. And that becomes very apparent in all of this. So those are some important people and the main families involved in this case. Now moving to law enforcement in the who's who's. First up, we have Higgins. Higgins was an ATF agent working out of Canton PD. He was friends with the Alberts and the McCabe's too. And he was hanging out with all of them the night of the incident. Then we have Michael Proctor, who is the point of a lot of controversy in this case. He was the lead investigator with the Massachusetts State Police in this case. Next, we have Yuri Buchanik, not Bukaki. He is a sergeant with the Massachusetts State Police. He also helped in investigating this case. We have Ken Berkowitz. He retired in July of 2022, so just a few months after this case. He was the chief of police for Canton, and sadly, he did pass at the end of December 2024, December 28th to be exact. No matter your feelings on this case or things that he might have done, that is still horrible because he's too young to have died, and his family is probably really going through that, and no matter what happens in this case, we should never wish that stuff on anybody. Another person in this investigation is going to be Michael Lank. He is a sergeant of the Canton Police Department. Then we have Tully, who is a detective lieutenant with the Massachusetts State Police. Nicholas Garino is a state trooper with the Massachusetts State Police. He is going to be the person that was the phone guy. He also dealt with the Apple Health data, the infotainment center from the Lexus, the Ring doorbell footage, and something about him in another case that I have covered is he has missed over 32,000 texts in the Sandra Birchmore case. That is something that was not brought up in the first trial, could possibly be brought up in the second one. So he may have some issues in the case when we go through the timeline. Joseph Paul is a Massachusetts State Police trooper as well. He was in charge of the accident reconstruction in the first trial. He was called as an expert. He is the one that was going to be going head to head with Alan Jackson, who knows about the science and the physics and the kinematics of the case, which becomes very important. And then we have, last but not least in this, Nicholas Barros, or Barros. He is a sergeant of the Dayton Police Department. He is one that saw Karen Reed's car at her parents' when the car was picked up and put on the tow truck. So this is just a breakdown of who is who, not everything that they are bringing to the case or what their role was in this case at this point in time fully. That will come later as we break down the timeline in this case. Some other key people in this case and witnesses are Carrie Roberts. She is a friend of John O'Keefe's and was with Jennifer McCabe and Karen when John O'Keefe's body was found. We have Julie Nagel, who was a friend of Brian Albert Jr.'s and was at 34 Fairview for Brian Jr.'s birthday. Something that came out was she was not interviewed about the night until about 4 months after the incident. Ryan Nagel, he comes into the picture because he is called to pick up his sister, Julie Nagel. Even though she didn't leave with him when called for a ride, Julie left about an hour later, but Ryan was her ride. So we go through and find out what they saw and witnessed in this. Sarah Levinstein also was a friend of Brian Albert Jr.'s that was at 34 Fairview for his birthday as well. Lucky, he is the snowplow guy that was plowing the streets because of the blizzard and everything that was going on. So he is our snowplow guy. Courtney Proctor, I did not look up a picture of her. She was not a witness in this case. She did not testify at the first trial, but her name is brought up quite a bit. Reason being is she is the sister of Michael Proctor, who is the lead investigator in this case. She was kept up to date on case activity by her brother, and then she also has a long-time friendship, or at least a decent amount of time that she has been friends with or has known the Alberts in this case. So there you have it. There is our opening roadmap to who the people are in this case, some important locations that we have to remember as we get more and more into the timeline of what happened. This is going to be a different look at the way things are done. I will not be looking at this case from a free Karen Reed perspective, and I will not be looking at this case from a grab your pitchforks and let's crucify Karen Reed. I am not looking at this from either main group. This is a highly controversial case. People that are on both sides of thinking Karen is innocent or guilty. I want to just look at the timelines and what the evidence is exactly that we can see with our own eyes here, and the things that we know that have happened. And we are going to not be looking at it from an innocence, looking for innocence or for sure she did it. This case, and what many cases are about, is can you prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this person did the crime that you are accusing them of? And does the evidence show that it was this person and only this person and nothing else could be the cause of what has happened? And that's the thing with cases, is can you prove that somebody did it? Because there are cases out there where you can know the person who did it, but you can't prove that they did it. There's a lot of injustices that happen. And so that is our question going through this. Can the state prove that Karen Read did what she did? Not, I feel like she did it, or I feel like she didn't do it. Do you think the state proved she did? That is how we are going to look at it from a logical perspective. I know there might be a lot of opinions in this. Try to keep it cordial. We can have difference of opinions and be respectful at the same time. So please join me on this ride and jumping into this case as we prepare for the second trial that is going to be happening in April. Like, subscribe, and share this video out, and I will see you next time. Bye.